Dun, 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 dun.
As far as another entrance into the Lord of the Rings world through the video gaming space, this is definitely starting to have that look. I mean, based on the last trailer, yep, the world is expanding of Gollum into what we're familiar with, like Mount Doom and the other creatures that surround Middle-earth. It looks like a fun game. And as I've said, I am a big Lord of the Rings fan, even though I haven't read the Lord of the Rings books yet. I've read The Hobbit, and that was for school. It's a time thing, and I got so much work to do anyways. It's hard to get me to be able to just sit down and read, because I'm like, I've got so much work. I mean, I'm like 6 months behind in covering this, as well as how many other projects. I'm in catch-up mode right now. I don't have time to read. Oh, maybe I can listen to the audiobook. I'll try that. But anyway, I would like to be able to enjoy it. But of course, I'm a big fan of the Lord of the Rings films. The extended cuts, too. I love the extended cuts. Those were a great watch. And those are all on HBO Max right now. I haven't seen The Hobbit yet, but that was enjoyable, too. I saw, the extended versions of The Hobbit. I've seen The Hobbit movies. I just haven't seen the extended versions. But I want to. Those were fun as well. But I really like the Lord of the Rings world. And the way I approached it, as I've said previously, was through the video gaming space. So this is sort of, again, like a first entrance point for me, even though, again, I'm not as familiar with the story as we all aren't yet, because it's still in the development process as I understand it. My first entrance was through Lego The Lord of the Rings. That video game, again, so classic. And The Hobbit's fun, too, even though, again, they should have waited to get that third movie in there. I'm still miffed that they didn't. It's DLC. It's like, no, that didn't happen. Disappointing. But anyway, they can maybe update it with, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll make a side comment later. But the Middle-earth games also as well. Those are a lot of fun. I've enjoyed those. So hopefully Daedalic Entertainment does a good job of this. Again, I've seen some of the previous work, notably The Suicide of Rachel Foster. Looked like a very good game. I haven't played it yet, but I want to. But I was impressed by the artistry that was on display in terms of the presentation. And what I'm seeing here looks like a Lord of the Rings game. Fits Middle-earth. Fits Gollum. I'm excited to at least give it a try and hopefully enjoy. I think what we can all hope will be a good, serviceable Lord of the Rings story. And maybe one that, again, as I said also in the previous video, I left this open for the comment section. If you feel so inclined, feel free to put your input down below. For people who would identify themselves as Tolkien purists, I almost said theorists, like that's not the word I'm looking for, purists, and you want the Lord of the Rings adaptations to stay true to the Tolkien works as they were established. How do you feel about like extended stories that perhaps, I don't know if this was necessarily written or if this is adapted from some of his writings, if it's just kind of more an extension that's based on loose, writings from other, fans and people in the development process that maybe just writing their own stories to fit in the Lord of the Rings universe, kind of like Middle-earth, right? Middle-earth took several liberties, but I think it was trying to be, faithful and fun. Well, at least faithful with some revisions, but faithful in spirit of the Lord of the Rings films, especially. Maybe not as much the books. Again, I can't judge it on that. But for Tolkien purists, how do you feel about this one? I mean, I know how you feel about Amazon, so that's why I'm kind of asking the question, like, is this on a better footing than Amazon is? Again, we'll get to Amazon, as I've been saying in a future video. That's going to be a fun one to explore. Maybe, hopefully not with I think Gollum, in hindsight, they're probably grateful. Like, we don't have a level of baggage that Amazon's going to have to deal with. And you're like, yeah, you should be grateful on that one. We're going to go ahead and watch this new A Unique Promise featurette or overview and get a good perspective on maybe from some of the developers on what's the intentions were and how to go about playing the game from a behind-the-scenes perspective. And we'll talk about it more in my condensed review segment for us watching the video together. Okay, again, what I've seen so far, I've liked. But I do leave it open again, for comments out there being like, what do you all think about it? Maybe, again, like I said, my story in terms of coming into the Lord of the Rings franchise, just to be fully open about it and transparent, isn't the same as I'm sure many people's, especially Tolkien purists. But in spirit, I agree with you, especially when it comes to Amazon. Okay, without further ado, because even I can see the writing on the wall for that. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Harold Riegler,
I think
producer at
most
Daedalic
people
Entertainment, and today I'm happy to reveal some exciting details about our upcoming game, The Lord of the Rings, Gollum.
I like the way you said that. Gollum. It's great. It's got a beautiful logo, by the way, too.
Gollum has always fascinated us. While being completely essential to the story written by J.R.R. Tolkien, Gollum's long chase for his precious ring has never been told in detail, yet his incredible journey
That's a nice
from
presentation
Mordor
from what I'm
through
seeing.
Mirkwood to the
Oh.
Mines of Moria takes players to places they haven't seen like this before, while setting the stage for events that will ultimately decide the fate of all of Middle-earth. Gollum
So
has
they really
pretty
sound like
much
they're trying to
traveled
work it into the
everywhere.
world
He's
of the,
also
at least the
pretty much met
films.
everyone, and by looking at events from his angle, players will experience Middle-earth through the eyes and twisted mind of one of the most iconic characters of all time. All of that in our very own artistic style. From his time
Not
in the
just to the
slave
credits of
pits
Peter
the
Jackson,
Dark
but also
Tower
Andy
to
Serkis.
Stay with the elves of Mirkwood. Gollum will creep, sneak, and trick his way past faithful.
So you're seeing
and
Mirkwood in
terrible
earlier
enemies,
form.
some of
Okay.
which have never been seen before in such detail. The Lord of the Rings Gollum is a cinematic stealth action adventure. It mixes stealth and parkour gameplay, and really leverages Daedalic's expertise in crafting engaging stories.
Okay.
Gollum is
I'm open
no
to that. I don't play
traditional
too many
hero.
stealth
He's
games,
learned
so that'll be
not to
interesting.
take any sides other
Or these
than
games
his
that
own,
prioritize
and some
that
of the
element
most
so much.
powerful beings
Maybe
in
they'll
the
work it
world
into the
want him
gameplay,
either
but
captive or dead.
to
In the
advertise
game,
it that
you
way
will
is
meet
interesting.
some iconic characters, but also interesting personalities less known to players, but nonetheless essential to the events unfolding. We've been highly faithful to the descriptions in the books, depicting,
Okay.
for instance, the Moth of Sauron, the Lieutenant of Barad-dûr, who is constantly scheming on behalf of his Dark Lord. In the game, we will see his face
Hey,
for
interesting
the first time, but also Thranduil, King of the Elves of Mirkwood, father of Legolas, and last but not least, Gandalf the Wizard. We're all super excited to be working on this amazing project, and we can't wait to show you more. Stay tuned on social media at Gollum Game.
See, that... Okay, so here we got the console information. So it's going to be releasing on... Because they haven't said this in the last couple trailers. PS5, PS4, Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Okay, so basically all the older generation of consoles and the newer. Okay. So again, you can enjoy this in a variety of different ways. Well, I think the one statement there towards the end, I mean, again, I don't know. Feel free to comment down below, Tolkien purists, how you might feel on this one, because again, I'm very curious. But he did say that they tried to look for the books for inspiration. Again, they seem to be avoiding the mistakes of Amazon, from what we've heard. So again, I don't know. I mean, this is going to be interesting. I'm kind of like, well, it's kind of fun that maybe we waited so long, or at least I did, in covering this, because it's interesting to... Well, we'll see again going forward. We got a long ways to go with the Amazon project, but as a comparison, maybe when you respect the lore versus... From what I've heard about the Amazon one deterring, we'll see. But, I mean, it'll be an interesting comparison, because obviously, at least from the written... And some people might say, well, this is just like, that's just the PR side to this. Well, in some spirit, you're like, well, if they really try and making it clear that they tried to be authentic to the illustrations as conveyed in the books from Tolkien's work, that at least indicates... a higher level of respect, at least for me. Now, again, it might be a more original story, but at the very least, you have a project that is trying to intentionally be true to the story. For example, even, and again, like I said, maybe again, I come at this from a different angle, but than Tolkien purists, but Middle-earth, the games. I absolutely enjoyed those stories because they felt like Lord of the Rings in spirit in regard to the film and the adventure quality and the Nemesis system, which is such a cool gameplay innovation. I loved it. Even if maybe it's a bit of a gorier game than I usually like, I don't tend to play like... There's a lot of orcs that get decapitated. You're like, well, like, I'm not usually a big gore person, so okay, like, look away and then, pop back into the story. But still, it was a very enjoyable... narrative. It was very interesting, and it had a lot of elements that were native to at least the Lord of the Rings films. So you felt like you were experiencing a Lord of the Rings epic, even if at some points it did reinvent what was established, as I understood, and maybe again deterred itself from Tolkien's official canon as illustrated by the books, and maybe the reverence of what the films tried to bring forward in their presentations. But they were still fun games, nonetheless, that did have that feeling of being in Middle-earth and experiencing that Middle-earth story. Even if, again, they took certain liberties. But this looks interesting. Again, there's a lot of variety in terms of the scope of the story. You've got Mirkwood at a prior state or pre-spiders. I appreciate that. I'm not a big spider person. And those things in the Hobbit movie did give me the heebie-jeebies. Mount Doom is obviously there. I'm assuming this is going to be like one of the is this Minas Tirith or is this one of the other worlds? This is reminiscent of an environment in Middle Earth, Shadow of War, actually. Maybe just in the coloring, the stylization of the actual room. I'm interested to see. This is more like a location run for it too. It looks beautiful in terms of design. They mentioned that this is a stealth game. That's interesting to market it that way. So I wonder if this is going to be a sort of game where you get to enjoy, unlike Middle Earth, where it's more so combat based and you're working for the story of heightened action and you're trying to, you're working with Talion and Celebrimbor, and all that. And there's an action combat component. It's set in the war scene, right? This seems maybe a little more, a little slower, at least from my suggestion, but like intentionally. Like you can enjoy the worlds that you go through. You have to kind of meander your way to each environment in order to remain undetected, I guess. Because I don't know. I've never played it. Like, is this an official genre of games? Stealth games? I mean, maybe. Oh yeah, like I said, I am a gamer, but I'm not as well informed as maybe others are, and I'm trying to venture into a space a little more. So I'm not familiar with the stealth genre, if that exists, but I don't know. I mean, the ideas of what that could mean. I mean, you've got some crawling. You can go through small cavern spaces. I wonder how that component is going to materialize here. But it looks like a game that has potential. And the character illustrations, by the way, I mean, they depart a bit from the illustrations we're familiar with, Thranduil and Gandalf, but maybe the game just wanted to try something new. The Mouth of Sauron has an interesting look. We'll see what happens with time, but for now, I mean, it's interesting to hear the developers clearly articulate that they have a reverence with the Lord of the Rings story as written in the books, and they're trying to bring that to life in their own way and in this own new project, while still having that nature that's indicated with the films, maybe for some of the color palette choices as well. That's very interesting, and it gives me at least some hope for a good Lord of the Rings story, seemingly, one that I think most people will enjoy. Again, maybe, as I said, Tolkien purists and maybe other people that might, have reservations on some maybe newer adaptations of Tolkien's works. Feel free to clarify down below what your thoughts are. But do you feel better about this than you do Amazon? Don't forget all my good stuff and like, subscribe, and sharing that bell until we get to watch more for this game or more Lord of the Rings stuff in the future. Of course, Amazon. Oh, we'll get there. I will see you guys at a point that happens to be. But for now, thanks for watching this video. I love you guys. Don't forget to love yourselves, your fellow man. God bless and peace.